One must look into what happened in Assam NRC to understand what is happening in India right now and why a nationwide NRC is an inhuman project bound to end in massive statelessness, persecution, and possible extermination of Indian Muslims. After Indian independence and during the Great Migration between India and Pakistan, while the people migrating in the state of Punjab and Rajasthan were received with a narrative of homecoming, in state of Assam, those migrating from East Pakistan were received with the narrative of infiltrators and outsiders. After a violent power struggle and promulgation of Assam Accord in 1980s, the state in Assam was given the power to identify who they considered to be outsider and use pushback methods to hurl people into Bangladesh boundaries. However, what has gone unattended and invisible for a long time is that the state has continuously dehumanized its citizens, reducing their political identity by maintaining a doubtful voter list since 1980s. In this list, any person whose standing as a citizen is contested by any other person could be listed. For example, the state in Assam gives me power to anonymously raise doubt on citizenship status of any other person residing in 100 kilometers radius from me. My mere raising of the doubt will mandate that the state official must mark that person as a doubtful voter, and such other person can prove their relation to the state by going to a judicial tribunal with a set of documents which identify them as an Indian citizen. These documents include birth certificate, legacy certificate, land records, etc. However, 48% of the births in India are unregistered and not everyone owns a land. In 2004, the Supreme Court of India declared the doubtful voter list as an unconstitutional process because of the enormity of documentation that it requires and the onus of proof that is put on a person who perhaps is not capable of procuring those documents. Despite being declared unconstitutional, the state in Assam has maintained and updated a D-voter list even prior to the 2016 general elections. The process of national citizenship registration in Assam was instituted to standardize the doubtful citizenship construction and identify who is an Indian citizen once for all. The requirement to prove one's citizenship was essentially the same as the requirement to prove oneself as not a D-voter. It also thus had the same problems of lack of documentary evidence. So when the state published its final NRC list and 1.9 million people did not find their names in it, it was not at all surprising. If one pays a closer look at these 1.9 million people, one would realize that they are traditionally women who lack documents. They are likely to be religious and ethnic minority groups who lack capital of identification. But more than that, they are the people who are identified as others. Even during the NRC process in Assam, the hateful narrative of otherizing found an unhealthy company in the social media. The calls of outsiders invading Assamese soil or taking away the land resources was deeply etched. Terminology such as Bangladeshi termites, jihadi, rapists were used to describe minority groups, and calls were raised that no self-respecting Assamese officer should let these outsiders to be identified as Indian citizens. The general lack of documentation made it easier for the state to exercise its discretion and dehumanize 1.9 million people by snatching away their citizenship status and making it political to lodge them in detention centers for indefinite period of time. The situation of Assam is not peculiar to the state of Assam alone. It mirrors what is happening in India and what will perhaps become much worse if we don't pay attention. Popular public figures in media and Bollywood have openly called out Muslim groups as rats. There are over 400 groups on Facebook with membership ranging from 100,000 to 1 million, which have been actively inciting hate against Indian Muslims. The episodes of lynching of Muslim men is not only limited to the mob. In the state like Uttar Pradesh, the law enforcement itself is perpetrating the crime. There are ground reports confirming that at the beginning of this year, following the Delhi riots, young Muslim boys, several of them underage, were identified and picked from their houses to be brutalized inside the police stations. The presence of Hindutva vigilante groups in building polarized narrative and executing mass-scale murders like the ones seen in Gujarat in 2002, should not be negated or forgotten. Indian Muslims are at the verge of massive persecution, and the world should not silently watch it happen.